أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. We start off by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending our peace and blessings upon our Master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us beneficial knowledge and understanding and wisdom. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with beneficial knowledge and understanding and wisdom. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us sincerity in all our actions and all our sayings. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us futuh al-arifin. We ask Allah to grant us openings with the Quran. For the one who receives opening with the Quran, he's gifted an abundant good. And we continue our Wednesday night journey with the Quran. Our Wednesday night journey with Surat Yousuf alayhi salam. And we left off last class with what part of the surah? Does anyone remember? Yeah, very good. Exactly. The woman, the wife of the Aziz, showing Yusuf alayhi salam off to the other woman at the banquet. And we said that in this instance, Yusuf alayhi salam, he said that I'd rather get thrown into jail than do what they call me out to do. So we're going to rewind a bit, 3-4 ayahs, and we're going to repeat these ayahs so we go into the next scene smoothly. So as Sulaiman said, may Allah bless him, the wife of the Aziz, Imra'at al-Aziz, the wife of the finance minister, she was caught in the last class we were speaking about calling Yusuf out to an indecency. And she ran to the door, and Yusuf ran to the door, and they found her master, the Aziz, at the door. And she immediately flipped the script and she said, what is the punishment of the one who tries to do something indecent with your wife? How are you going to punish him? Except if you throw him in jail or if you give him a painful torment. So she offered him 2 ways of punishing him. And then Yusuf alayhi salam stood up for himself and he said, no, she called me out and she seduced me and I did not want anything to do with this haram. So they go and they call someone from her own family to come be a judge. So he comes and he says that if his shirt is ripped from the front, then he's lying. And if his shirt is ripped from the back, then he's saying the truth. Because if his shirt is ripped from the back, it means that he was trying to escape the haram and not fall into it. And if it's ripped from the front, it means he was trying to put himself on her and she was trying to refrain from him. And it turned out, of course, that his shirt was ripped from the back. So when it came evident that his shirt, فَلَمَّا رَأَى قَمِيصَهُ قُدَّ مِن دُبُرٍ قَالَ إِنَّهُ مِن كَيْدِكُنَّ إِنَّ كَيْدَكُنَّ عَظِيمٌ. So when it became apparent that his shirt was ripped from the back, the Aziz said, indeed this is from your plots, O woman. Indeed your plots are mighty. Indeed your plots are great. Like when you want to plot and do something, you do it right. Like you know how to do it. Your plots are treacherous. Then the Aziz turns to Yusuf and he tells him, he says, Yusuf أعرض عن هذا. And then he looks at his wife and he says, واستغفري لذنبك إنك كنت من الخاطئين. He tells Yusuf to leave off this affair, like drop it, dead this right now. Go where? He's not throwing him into jail. He's saying go continue your work and act like nothing happened. And he tells his wife, as for you, because she was wrong, seek forgiveness for what you did. Indeed, you are from those who did something wrong. Indeed, you fell into error. Indeed, you fell into clear error. So we learn from this that Yusuf alayhi salam was evident that he was pure, and it was evidence that he was innocent. It was evident that it was not him that did it. And it's embarrassing that his wife is the one that was trying to seduce her slave or her servant against his own will. But the Aziz doesn't do anything to Yusuf. Now, where we left off, the woman started to speak. Because naturally, the way that things work is that the word gets out. The word was not kept. Yusuf was told to just mind his business and continue living. And he says, as for you, go seek forgiveness. Allah, He then says, وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين. And the women of the city now, all the women of the city, the wives of all the ministers and the wives of all the famous people and all the real housewives of Cairo or real housewives of wherever this was, they start to speak. And of course the word gets out. Like we said, we don't know, naturally the word gets out. The servants are all speaking and they're all speaking to each other. And so they start to speak about this lady, the wife of the Aziz. And this is really embarrassing because this lady, she's a high class, high level society aristocrat, and she's trying to do something with a slave boy. So the women of the Medina, they begin to speak and they say that the wife of the Aziz tried to seduce her slave against his own will. Indeed, she was madly in love with him. قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. Indeed, she was drunk in love with him, crazy in love. إِنَّا لَنَرَاهَا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. Indeed, we see her in clear error. Indeed, she's truly wrong. So of course this bothered her because everyone is talking about her. So she wants to clear her name in front of these women that are speaking about her. We learn something indirectly here. We learn something indirectly, and that's that the woman had nothing better to do than talk, and that this lady Imrat al-Aziz had nothing better to do than go and protect her image. They were not busy with anything. They were free. They were watching tabloids and watching sitcoms. What are they called? Those shows that, what are they called? Sitcoms? Not sitcoms. What? Soap operas. Soap operas. They're watching soap operas, and of course there's no soap operas, there's no cable back then, but they're free. They're free to talk. So she was hurt by what they were saying about her, so she wants to clear her name. So she calls them all to a banquet, and that's where we left off, as Sulaiman beautifully said, as he remembered. She calls them all to a banquet. She invites them all over. What do rich women do? They go out and they invite each other. And then once this lady invites everyone to a banquet, this lady has to outdo her. So she invites everyone to a banquet, and then it just keeps invite until one day you don't get the invite and you say, why didn't she invite me? I'm going to cut them all off. How dare they? It's when you got nothing better to do and you have money to blow, right? So she says, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَاعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكِئًا وَآتَتْ كُلَّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ سَكِّينًا وقالت اخرج عليهن فلما رأينه أكبرنه وقطعن أيديهن وقلنا حاشا لله ما هذا بشرا إن هذا إلا ملك كريم. So she prepared a famous banquet and a large banquet for all of them, and she granted them all good places to sit. And she did something very interesting on top of that. On top of preparing them food and a nice place to sit, she granted all of them a knife. She handed all of them a knife personally. Why did she do this? Because she knew that Yusuf alayhi salam, when he came out and they saw him, they were going to be astonished and they were going to be shocked and they were going to have a knee-jerk reaction and cut their hands from his beauty. She knew that was going to happen because he's like nothing she's ever seen before, because she's crazy about him. And if she's crazy about him, she knows that they will all have that same reaction. So after she heard about what they were saying about her, she got a banquet prepared for all of them, and she gave each and every one of them a knife. And she commanded Yusuf now to come out. She said, "Ukhruj alayhin," come out so they could see you. فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ. So when they saw him, they were astonished by his beauty, and they were amazed. وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ. And they did truly cut their hands out of astonishment and amazement. They could not control themselves. وَقُلْنَا حَاشَا لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا. And they said, all praise is due to Allah. Allah is perfect from any imperfection. This is not a human being. Please, if you're sitting in a way that you're not sitting up, please sit up, because we're talking about the Quran. Please sit up. If you're against the wall, sit up. So, and they said, indeed, this is not a human being. This can only be an angel, a pure angel, because of his beauty. Now that the scholars of Tafsir, they talk about this, and some of them over-exaggerate. We like to call it over-exaggerating. Allahu A'lam. The extent of Yusuf alayhi salam's beauty. The extent of his beauty, we don't know, but some of them go on to say that his beauty was such a fitna. It was such a fitna for a woman that he had to cover his face when he walked in public. But the man's beauty is a bit different than the female beauty. I think we know this. The nature of the man is different than the nature of the woman. Of course, there could be a good-looking man, but the man's beauty is different. It's personified. It's magnified in different ways. The important thing is that Yusuf was very beautiful. He was very good-looking. He was actually physically good-looking, but also he had probably traits to him that no one else had that made his beauty magnified. So now they all cut their hands. And she says to them, قالت فذلكن الذي لمتنني فيه ولقد راودته عن نفسه فاستعصم ولئن لم يفعل ما آمره ليسجنن وليكونن من الصاغرين. She goes, yes, indeed. This is what you guys were all speaking ill of me for. This is Yusuf, the one that you were all talking with me about me for without knowledge. But now that you see his status and now that you see how he is, it makes more sense to all of you. She goes, this is the one that you were talking about me about. لمتنني فيه ولقد راودته عن نفسه. She now admits, and it's very interesting here because she didn't have to admit. She did not have to admit that what she did, because what she did was in private. Only Yusuf knew about it, and of course the Aziz came to know that she was lying. But she admits to everyone. She admits to everyone that indeed it was me that seduced him. Because we said before, we learned that she likes him, she loves him. That's why when she told her husband, oh, you have to punish him, throw him in jail, she didn't say go kill him, because she's still plotting for when he comes out of jail. She's madly in love with him. So she wants to cover or protect his name and tell the truth. She said, no, indeed I have seduced him against his own will. فَاسْتَعْصَمْ, and he refused to do anything with me, and he refused to give in. وَلَئِنْ لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا أَمُرُهُ, and if he does not do now what I'm calling him out to do, لَا يُسْجُنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ, he indeed will be thrown into jail. Because now she's just being a brute, a brute, like just an arrogant person. She said, خلاص, now that's it. I'm letting you all know that is the truth. Yes, and he didn't give in. But now if he doesn't give in to what we want from him, we will indeed throw him into the pits of jail, and we'll throw him into jail, and indeed وَلَيَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ, and he will be from those who are belittled. We're going to belittle him. But she does not know that belittling comes from Allah, and the raising of someone's status comes from Allah, and the one who's with Allah and seeks refuge from Allah and does not give into haram. Sit up, brother. Sit up, Habibi. Sit up. Sit up. Sit good. Yes, please. Sit good. Yeah. So she says she has a misconception because she's thinking that jail is what makes someone belittled. But some of the greatest people I know in history were thrown into jail. Some of the greatest people that I know in history were thrown into jail. By the way, the Imam al-Arba'a, Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, all of them, historically, 100% accurately, historical fact, they were thrown into jail. Malcolm X was thrown into jail. Ibn Taymiyyah was thrown into jail. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he was beat in jail. He was beat because at the time the Islamic Muslim Ummah was run by the Mu'tazila, and they were trying to get him to say things that were not true about Allah and Allah's majesty, so he refused to give in. What happened to all of these people that were unjustly thrown into jail? They were unjustly thrown into jail, or some of them were justly thrown into jail, but jail raised them. They were all raised, because being physically locked up is not being spiritually locked up. Being physically locked up in a prison is imprisoning your physical body. But some people, they're outside of jail and they're more imprisoned than people that are inside of jail. And sometimes jail is the best thing that happens to someone. Like before jail, he was good, and after jail he becomes great and famous. Nelson Mandela was thrown into jail. There's a recent resistance leader in Palestine, he was thrown into jail and he came out of jail. Many of them were thrown into jail, and Allah lifts them in status when they're in jail, because when they're in jail they're with Allah. When they're in jail they're free because they're not committing haram. So she says, indeed I'll throw him into prison if he doesn't give in to what I want from him, and he'll be from the belittled. And now he says his famous ayah that we stopped at last week, قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه وإلا تصرف عني كيدهن أصب إليهن وأكن من الجاهلين. He goes, oh my Lord, indeed prison is more beloved to me than what they call me out to do, and if you do not help me get rid of this that they're trying to make me do, أصب إليهن, I may cave in. Yusuf alayhi salam is saying, I'm a human being. I don't want to be in this environment anymore. I'd rather be in jail. Because sometimes you have to remove yourself from a bad environment. He's saying that the nice palace with the air condition and the cable TV and the high-speed internet and the, of course, comfortable couches, of course, comfortable sofas. And of course, he had a good situation in the palace, of course, no doubt. Because when he was brought by the Aziz, he said to his wife, give him a good living situation, like honor his stay. So of course, he had a nice and comfortable living situation. But if that nice and comfortable living situation is something where you find yourself testing you in terms of your deen, then it's not worth it. And this is something that we could all relate to. Something we could all relate to. Sometimes we are in college campuses, or we're here wherever, or you're in like a college, what's it called, a dormitory, and the fitna's too strong. Sometimes you have to remove yourself from fitna in order for you not to fall into it. He's a prophet and messenger of God. Of course Allah is going to aid him. Of course he has the aid of Allah, no doubt. But ultimately we seek assistance from We seek assistance from Allah and in Allah. We seek assistance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from anything. We seek assistance. We don't want to fall into haram. And sometimes you have to know yourself. So he says to Allah, he says, indeed, prison is more beloved to my heart, no doubt, than what they call me out to do, because they're calling me out to haram and they call me out to indecency. And for the believer, he'll rather be in prison his whole life and die in jail than commit an act of haram. Because committing an act of haram is misery. And you live with that pain your entire life. And he says, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدُهُنَّ. And oh Allah, if you don't move away their plot from me, like if you don't help me with this, if you don't remove their plot from me, أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ, I may fall into that. I may incline into it. You see, أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ, I may incline or fall or trip. وَأَكُنْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And my conclusion from this fall, I'll be from the ignorant. It's very interesting. He says, he doesn't say, he says, أَكُنْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. He ends the ayah by saying, I will indeed be from those who are ignorant, a jahil. He doesn't say, أَكُنْ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He doesn't say, I'll be from the losers. Because if you do a haram, you're a loser. Yani, Islamically speaking, in Sharia, you're a khasir, because haram equals Jahannam. But he doesn't say, I'll be from the losers. He says, I'll be from the ignorant. I was reading the tafsir of this ayah, it was phenomenal. They're saying because only an ignorant individual, only an ignorant person trades the ladha, trades the delight of a 2 to 5 minute delight in dunya for eternal Jahannam in the hereafter. Only an ignorant person trades delight here in this world that's haram, which is not actual delight, because real delight is the delight of Jannah. Real delight is everlasting bliss and happiness in Jannah with how many ever spouses you want, with whatever type of food you want, with whatever type of fruit you want, with whatever type of drink you want, always comfortable. In Jannah, you'll always be comfortable. In Jannah, every day, you're given whatever you want, whatever your heart wants. In Jannah, there's something that your eye has never seen and your ear has never heard of, and nothing you could ever comprehend or imagine. As the Prophet ﷺ said, لَهَا مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمَعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. This is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ in regards to Jannah. In Jannah, you'll find something that no eye has ever seen. Because right now, when Allah tells us we'll have like this type of fruit in Jannah and these types of meat in Jannah, of course, this is all something, this is called al-taqreeb. Taqreeb means to make something understood to you. Because right now we think in the dimension of dunya. Us humans, we think in a dimension in this dunya. So I understand me. My brain can understand fruit and I can understand meat. And I can understand woman, that because men, we love women, right? So Allah says, yes, in Jannah you'll have all of that. This is taqreeb, so you understand. But of course, Jannah is going to have things and colors and shapes and sizes that you never seen before. But I can't tell you it now because you don't know how it is. Because we're in dimension of dunya. That's why the Prophet said it has what the eye has never seen and what the ear has never heard. وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. And what nobody can even comprehend and imagine. Yani your heart is your area of comprehension. The Prophet says, وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. He doesn't say, وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلى عَقْلِ بَشَرٍ. He doesn't say in what has no mind has thought of. He says in what no heart has ever comprehended. And in Jannah you'll have stuff that you can never imagine. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he ends this by saying, Ya Allah, if you don't save me from this plot, and if you don't throw me into jail, I may fall and be from the jahilin, I'll be from the ignorant, because an ignorant person is the person who trades dunya for his akhirah. An ignorant person is the one who trades a temporary ladha in dunya for eternal hellfire, and the hereafter, when their true bliss and their true delight is the delight of the hereafter. And the hereafter is everlasting and forever. Now we enter the new ayah of today. قال فاستجاب له ربه فصرف عنه كيدهن إنه هو السميع العليم. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he responded to Yusuf alayhi salam. Of course, we see a common trend in the Quran. We see a common trend in the Quran, and that's if a prophet and messenger of God ever calls out. Yeah, you could just click the button that makes it quiet, right? Thank you so much. We see a common trend in the Quran. If someone ponders on the Quran, he sees that every time Allah mentions a dua from a prophet and messenger, every time. Like, I want to ask you a question. Like, did you ever read like that of someone, like a prophet called out to Allah and Allah said no? No, it never happens. Every time we read about someone calling out to Allah, Nuh alayhi salam calls out to Allah, Allah responds. You know, Yunus alayhi salam, he calls out to Allah, Allah responds. Right here, Yusuf alayhi salam, he calls out to Allah and he says, oh Allah, please help me. And of course, prison is more beloved to my heart than what they call me out to do. And Allah in the next ayah, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. Allah answered his call immediately. And فَاسْتَجَابَ in the Arabic language, Allah could have said, وَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. وَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. And فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. In the English language, when we translate the Quran in English, the wow and the fa, we translate it to, and his Lord responded to him. You guys with me? And his Lord. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. And his Lord responded to him. But in Arabic, the fa holds a different meaning than the waw. The waw could mean the same thing as the fa, but the fa means something different than the waw. They both mean and. Fa means al-istijab al-fawriya. Fa means immediate response. Yani Allah responded to him immediately. So we understand, people of Arabic language, when you hear فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ, it means Allah immediately answered his call. Yusuf alayhi salam, he called out to Allah and Allah answered him immediately. So Allah answered his call. فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدُهُنَّ, and he moved away their plot from him. How did Allah move away their plot from him? By answering his dua, by taking him to jail, right? إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He hears and He sees everything. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Indeed, He hears everything. He's Sami'. Allah, He hears all dua. Every time you make a dua to Allah, Allah, He hears your call. Allah, He hears everything. Allah hears everything and Allah sees everything. And Alim is, Allah is all aware of everything. Allah knows about her plot, and Allah knows what's going to happen to you, Yusuf, and Allah knows about your dad right now back in Palestine, and Allah knows about your great-grandfather Ibrahim and where he's been. Allah knows everything. Like Allah knows everything. But there's something interesting here we want to talk about, and that's that we said that Imra'at al-Aziz, the wife of the finance minister, she did something very strange, very abnormal, very against the nature of a female. She outwardly called Yusuf out to indecency. She outwardly said to him, "Come, hayta lak." She said the word, "Come to me. Let's get it on." After she locked every single door, and after she put her nice cream on, and after she did her hair at the parlor, and she was ready to get it on, she did something abnormal. The man is the one that has to initiate. The man has to beg the woman. The man has to constantly beg, and then the woman finally gives in. This is the nature of the female. The woman is made to be modest. She needs to be chaste. We said that we understand from this, and we deduct from this that for years she was probably trying to get his attention. And he never caved, so she went crazy and she called him out. And she did something abnormal, which is very unattractive for a man. But even the man, you get excited, even if it's unattractive and it's not the nature of a woman, it excites the man, because if a woman is crazy about you and she's stalking you at the dorm and she's stalking you and texting you, it's still like you think, oh, she's thinking about me. It still comes to your mind. But what we don't know is the amount of time that took place between from when the Aziz told Yusuf to go. Remember, he said, go and drop this, dead this. And he told his wife to go make istighfar. So Yusuf was not thrown into jail, right? They were trying to dead it. They tried to dead it, but they couldn't dead it. The point was to move on like nothing happened, but they couldn't, because the woman all started talking in the city. So it reopened. The point is now that Yusuf alayhi salam was called out from the wife of the finance minister. She called him out for this haram. Now there's a time period between then and the time when the woman came out and cut their hands, that she was also in the palace with him. Like they just went back like nothing happened. Like they continued life like nothing happened. And like we said, he probably has in the back of his head, of course he's a noble prophet and messenger of God, but he's a human being. What I'm saying to all of you is, why does he make this ultimate final dua for Allah to save him from this haram? Because he doesn't want to be in that environment of the palace. He wants to remove himself from that bad environment, lest he perhaps asbu ilayhinna, lest he perhaps slip and fall. He wants to make sure he doesn't slip and fall. Like we said, you have to protect yourself. You have to remove yourself from a bad environment. There's many people that come and ask me, like, this is an important question to answer. Like, can I be a physical trainer at a gym? Of course, it's fine to train people. It's fine to train people. Of course, it's halal to be a physical trainer. To train someone how to be strong is fine. But then you have Muslim men physically training women. Is this halal? Like, does this make any common sense? Like, you're going to physically train a woman to do squats in front of you? This is halal? Astaghfirullah al-Azim. Like, this environment is so bad. You have someone that fell into zina like 15 times. He tells me, I can't stop committing zina. I go, why? Like, I already know why before about this, to get him to think, because sometimes you have to ask someone so they could use their own brain. They turn on their brain sometimes. I'm like, where do you work? He goes, I work at the gym. Like, of course you're going to fall into haram every day. Of course you're going to fall into one haram and you're going to become addicted to that haram. And shaitan is going to make it look beautified to you. No, this is really bad. You have to, like, it's so simple, man. The person of Iman, it's so simple. It's not difficult. He understands that he's in a bad environment. He has to remove himself from this environment. Like, you understand that. You have to have love for Allah, though. That's deeper. The deeper thing is you have to want to not do haram. Like, that's the truth. That's the truth. Like, that's the truth. You have to want to not do haram. Because someone coming to me or Shaykh Osama or Shaykh Qatanani and saying, oh, I keep falling into haram, like, that's like easy to say. Like, you just want to make yourself feel better, so I tell you, oh brother, no, we gotta come to the masjid. And no, man, why are you falling into haram? There's another brother, he said, Shaykh, I keep drinking alcohol. I knew before I asked him, like, it's the environment, man. It's always the environment. Who goes and drinks alcohol by himself after Isha? Like, who comes to Isha and go, like, who prays in the masjid 5 times a day and goes and drinks alcohol? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I've never seen it. Like, the environment is bad. The environment has to be changed. It comes down to you wanting to change. That's what the truth is. Like, if you really want change, if you really want good for yourself, you will implement change and you will push yourself to do good. That's what I'm saying. Yusuf alayhi salam, he really didn't want haram. And he was a slave. He couldn't make his own decision for himself. He couldn't go say, like, sign me up for jail. He couldn't. He needed Allah's help for Allah to get him out of that horrible situation, that bad environment, that environment that was calling him to zina every day. But he's a true mu'min. He calls and he asks Allah ultimately to help him from that. Ya Allah, help me so I don't fall into this. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبَّهُ فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. So Allah, He responded to Yusuf alayhi salam. He answered his dua and he moved away their plot from him. Indeed, Allah, He hears everything and He knows everything. Going back to all of us, Allah, He hears all of our plight and He sees all of our plight and He's all aware. He's all aware. I say to you, brother, if you're dealing with the haram that you cannot stop, 99% of the time it's due to the environment you're in. It's due to that environment. You have to remove it. You cannot put yourself in a gym, in a mixed gym, where there's different types of gorgeous other gender, and you're not going to fall into haram. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Maybe if your gym routine and your job in the gym $15 an hour is more important than your iman in Jannah, that's up to you and God. But ultimately, it's not difficult. You not wanting to do something means you remove yourself from the environment. The brother that had the alcohol problem, I said, brother, like, when you go drink alcohol, it's non-Muslim friends? He goes, yeah, all my friends are non-Muslim, all of them. I don't have a Muslim friend. I said, oh, sometimes Muslims drink alcohol too, but like, you should have some Muslim friends. Like, wallahi, you should have Muslim friends. You should remove yourself from that environment. Like a grown man can make a decision for himself, yani. I understand it's difficult. I understand you know, certain events or certain wrong, decisions make you fall down deep in the avalanches. I get all of that. That's understood. But no. Like, you're a man ultimately at the end of the day, or you're a woman, you're a grown man or woman. You can make decisions for yourself. You can ultimately make decisions for yourself, and it all comes down to one thing, and that's that if you truly want to stop and you truly want, like, to be with Allah and to, like, leave off haram. That's really what it is. Allah's there for you. And if you take or you implement or you exert any type of effort, Allah will come to you. If you go to Allah with a handspan, Allah will go to you with an arm span, an arm's length, the hadith. And if you go to Allah walking, Allah will come to you jogging or running. The meaning of the hadith, of course, astaghfirullah, Allah, hand and arm. No, of course, no. I'm saying the meaning of the hadith is when you go and you exert any type of effort to turn to Allah or to return to Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you 10 times more back. It's like you're in a relationship, or you're in your mom or whoever it is in dunya, and you go and you do something good and they're so appreciative that they go do 10 times more back. This is how Allah, it's Allah. وَلِلَّهِ مَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى. Allah is the greatest. Allah is the greatest. You give Allah 1%, He'll give you 100 million%. 1%, 100%. Just you have to want to not do haram. You have to want to not smoke in order to not smoke, and you have to want to not commit zina, and you have to want to not look at haram, to not look at haram. Of course, then there's like difficulty. Then you go seek help. You talk to a therapist, or you speak to an imam, or there's steps that we could talk about. We'll take like 5 steps. We'll go and we'll connect you with someone if you're really addicted to something. No, but you have to want to stop. Like, that's number one. You can't stop something if you don't want to stop it. And wanting to stop it isn't just saying I want to stop it. It's actually in your heart detesting what you're doing. You have to really detest it. You have to hate haram, wallahi. But the only way you can hate haram is if you increase yourself in iman. With the Quran, yeah? With the Quran and with the seerah of the Prophet and with the salah and the masjid, the only way you could actually detest haram and hate it and not want it in your life is knowing the impacts and effects of it. Because haram is misery. Haram is depression. Haram is anxiety. Haram is back spasms. Haram is backaches. Haram is not happy. Haram is gloomy. And being in the boundaries of Allah and being upholding like halal and being a person of God and upholding the fara'id of Allah, the obligations of Allah, it's all happiness and bliss and Jannah. Always Allah, when He talks about Jannah, He mentions you will have spouses, untouched spouses, and you will have rivers, and you will have fruit and different types of bird meat and all this stuff. And then Allah, He says, وَرَضْوَانٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Like, when Allah mentions Jannah, He mentions something that you'll get in Jannah as well, along with all that great stuff that we said is just for us to understand Jannah. Allah also always, He says, and you'll get rida from Allah, ridwan min Allah, which is you will also receive in Jannah the pleasure of God. And that's better than everything else that you get. Like, better than the untouched spouses, and better than the fruit, and better than the chicken, and the Jannah chicken that you don't know about yet. Better than all of that is the pleasure of God. So I tell all of you that you could receive a piece of Jannah. You could receive like a piece or a taste of Jannah in dunya. And for the brothers that come to this masjid, they know this because I say this all the time. Like you could receive a taste of Jannah in this dunya. And that's by receiving the pleasure of Allah before you pass away. Because if Jannah, you're going to get in Jannah, pleasure of Allah. So you could get the pleasure of Allah in dunya by remaining in the boundaries of God and being a person of God. Being a person of God. We say it like it sounds very Western. You be a person of God. And no, it's very Islamic. Be a person of Allah. A person of God is someone that upholds the obligations of God. It's so simple. Wallahi, Islam is so easy, man. Good, bad. Halal, haram. Obligation, don't do. Haram. Do good, don't do bad. Happiness. Do good, don't do bad. Jannah. Do good, don't do bad. Success in this dunya. Look, it's so easy. It's so easy. It's so easy. It's not difficult. It's so easy. It's not difficult. Pray 5 times a day. Fast. Ramadan. Bare minimum. There's a Bedouin, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, tell me something that I do if I enter Jannah. He goes, you pray your 5 and you fast Ramadan and you make Hajj. And he said, and the Bedouin, he was an honest guy. May God bless him for his honesty. He goes, I'm not going to do nothing else more than that. He's like, no. He's like, I'm not going to increase no more than that. Like, I'm not going to do nothing more than the 5. I'm going to pray the 5. That's it. And I'm going to do Ramadan and that's it. You have someone, he fasts every other day. The Bedouin said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fast Ramadan and I'm going to pray my 5. He goes, well, I enter Jannah, and the Prophet said, yeah, don't do nothing extra. The Prophet basically told him, yeah, that's it, that's more than enough. And do what you have to do. Of course, the person that loves God, of course, without a doubt, the person that loves Allah, once you start off with obligations, your love grows for God, like it grows. Because you realize true happiness is here. And you start to realize something crazy, and that's that true success is in the obligations of God. Like once you uphold obligations, you realize that your life starts to increase, your quality of life increases. And all these problems that you had before you implemented Fajr on time, like you have to be a person that observes. Like before I was implementing the obligations of God, I was depressed. Before I prayed Fajr every day, I always had a bad day. I used to always be cranky. I always got headaches at 9 a.m. But now I do all of this and I have all this. You have to see the effects of good deeds, because good deeds, pious actions, obligations have effects, right? Effects, mental, physical, spiritual, emotional effects. And haram on the flip side, haram, looking at filth, hearing filth, talking filth, stepping in filth, like of course figurative and actual filth, it has effects. Haram has effects. Haram brings you down. It gives you anxiety. It inherits weakness. The person that's in haram, he's weak, he's not strong. The person with Allah, the person with Quran and Fajr and the masjid and wudu, he's a strong individual. The shaitan is scared of the strong mu'min. The shaitan, jinns, shayateen, they don't go anywhere near someone who prays 5 times a day. You ever heard of a mu'min? I never heard of a believer that prays 5 times a day in the masjid and he makes wudu, constantly have a problem with jinn. The jinn is 4 miles away from him. His house has a 6-mile radius from any jinn that dares to come near him, I promise you. Quran repels jinn. Jinn, they love indecency. Jinn, shayateen, they love impurities. The pure person has no problem with jinn. A person of God is protected by God. So then, ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين. So then they saw that the best thing they should do is throw him into jail. Who's they? The Aziz and his ministers. The Aziz is the finance minister. We want to make something clear today, because maybe sometimes I interchangeably mentioned or referred to the Aziz as the king of Egypt. No, the Malik, the king of Egypt is someone, and the Aziz is someone else. The Aziz in the beginning of the story here, the palace of the Aziz, the wife of the Aziz, this is the finance minister of Egypt. He had a high position. He was a big aristocrat, no problem. But he wasn't the king of the time. The king of the time comes soon. The king of Egypt is also going to be mentioned. And interestingly, we see here in the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, it's not called Fir'aun, it's called Al-Malik. The king. They say that at the time of Yusuf alayhi salam, it was different than the time of Musa alayhi salam. The time of Musa, the people that ran Egypt were the pharaohs. Pharaoh is the name of the person that, runs like the emperor, like the emperor Constantine, all right? The Roman emperor, Pharaoh of Egypt, and king of Egypt. So king of Egypt and Pharaoh of Egypt is time periods. The time of Yusuf alayhi salam, it was known as the king, not the Pharaoh. So it was made clear to them. Who was them? The Aziz and his group of friends and his ministers. After they saw the بعد ما رأوا الآيات, after they saw the ayat. Ayat here is the linguistic ayat. Ayat is sign. Ayah of Quran. We say these are ayahs of the Quran. Like one ayah. Ayah in the Arabic language means a sign. So there's ayat of Allah out in His creation, which are the signs of God. So after they saw, yani ayah is a proof. After they saw the proofs, it was made to them to throw him into jail, hatta heen, until a heen. A heen is an appointed timing that's not specified. All right. So who is they? The Aziz and his people. After they saw the signs, what signs did they see? What signs did they see? Because it says after they saw the signs that it was made clear to them that they should throw him into jail. What signs did they see? Yeah, basically the signs that his innocence. His innocence. Now they want to throw him into jail. Hatta heen. They want to throw him into jail for an appointed timing, like a unspecified timing. That's how we're going to translate it. Because heen, I was reading the tafsir of heen. Linguistically speaking, the word heen is not, it doesn't refer to a small amount of years or a large amount of years. It's completely ambiguous. You know, ambiguous? It's completely random. Like heen means timing, correct? But it's a word used for timing that has no, not a little or a lot. Any timing. Their goal, after they saw the signs of his innocence and that their wives were crazy about him, like Umar said, was to throw him into jail until what? Until what? Until he was forgotten about. Until everything calmed down. Until the tabloids, you know, moved on to the next story. You guys get it? They want to hush everything because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. They want to make everything quiet. So now he's thrown into jail. But this is the answer of his dua. Of course, he wants to be in jail. He wants nothing to do with haram and the wife of the minister. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ. Now, you know, the Hollywood movie goes black because they throw him into jail. Black. And now the new scene comes. Jail. Third chapter. Third in Turkey. If we're watching the movie in Turkey, we get a break. We go out, cigarette break. I don't know if you watch the movie in a movie theater in Turkey. Stop. Or in Jordan, intercession. You go buy coffee, cigarette, bathroom. You come back in 5 minutes. So it's black now, and we're moving on to the chapter 3. First chapter was Yusuf at home. Family dynamics. Yusuf the boy, the young boy. Second chapter was Yusuf the slave in the palace of the Aziz, and the temptations of dunya that we all go through. And third chapter is Yusuf alayhi salam now in jail, and Allah he turns the scene to jail. وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ قَالَ أَحَدُهُمَا إِنِّي أَرَانِي أَعْصِرُ خَمْرًا وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. So two individuals, two young people were thrown into jail with him. One of them, let me translate it from here. And there entered the prison with him two young men. One of them said, indeed I have seen myself in a dream, pressing wine. And the other one said, indeed I have seen myself carrying upon my head some bread, from which the birds were eating. Inform us of its interpretation. Indeed we see you to be of those who do good. So when Yusuf now was thrown into jail, at his time, when he was also taken into jail, when he was getting, what's it called in English, when he's getting booked, there was two other people getting booked with him, all right, at the same time. They entered with him at the same time. Of course, we understand that in jail, we understand from this ayah that there was multiple people in jail with him, and he was in an open prison. He wasn't in a secluded prison. He was not in seclusion, or they call it solitary confinement. And the scholars of Tafsir said that there was probably multiple people that were in the jail with them. And the way that the jails were back then were not separate cells, they were open. This is important for us to understand, because it means there was interaction. There was human interaction. And it means that everyone was on the same playing field. There was no one more arrogant than the other one. They're all in jail. One person is going to get hung tomorrow. One person is going to get hung next week. One person will get free next week. They're all on trial or in jail for whatever reason. So jail is a nice setting. Of course, we said that some great people become great because of jail. Malcolm X is the only book I ever read in the English language completely from front to cover. Like, it's the only book ever. I read books in Arabic, alhamdulillah. In English, the only book I ever read from front to cover, I finished completely, was the autobiography of Malcolm X as told by Alex Haley. Alex Haley was actually an FBI informant. He was actually working against Malcolm the whole time, but Malcolm eventually got shot and killed, and he died a martyr because he's a Muslim. He's a shaheed 100%. We ask Allah to have mercy on him. Malcolm X was an Orthodox Sunni Muslim 100%. They call him the Shaheed of America. In Arabic, they call him Shaheed America, the martyr of America. Malcolm X did one of the greatest things in American history, by the way. Many of us don't know this. He did one of the greatest things in American Muslim history, in Muslim Islamic history in America. He brought the Nation of Islam, which was a very, very promising, big-time dawah movement, which called to not true Orthodox Islam. It called to how do you say batil in English? False, a false. It called to a false version of Islam. The Nation of Islam is not Islam. Malcolm X in prison, he was thrown into jail. He was from Boston. He was in Boston at the time. He wasn't originally from Boston. He was actually originally from, was it Kentucky? What's the capital of Kentucky? Was he from Louisville? Huh? No, where was Malcolm X from? He was from another place, not Alabama. Nebraska? He was from Nebraska. He was from Nebraska, and at a young age, Malcolm X's father was killed in front of him by the KKK, by the Ku Klux Klan. They actually crucified his dad and burnt him on his front lawn. So then Malcolm had many brothers and sisters, and now his mother was a single mother. So the government at the time, of course, was racist. So they claimed that Malcolm X's mother was crazy, and the reason why they did that was to separate the family, of course. So she can't be with her children. So the kids were taken away and put into different foster homes. So Malcolm X was taken eventually to Boston, and that's where he became like a criminal, and he did some criminal acts. I think he was thrown into jail for larceny, which is robbery, armed robbery, or robbery. And he goes to jail, and jail makes him a great man. He becomes great in jail. He gets introduced to Elijah Muhammad, the prophet of the Nation of Islam at the time, or the one who claims to be the prophet. And he writes back and forth letters to Elijah Muhammad. And a lot of African Americans at this time are accepting the Nation of Islam. So the Nation of Islam actually reformed the lives of many people. Of course it's not false religion. Of course it's not Islam, but it had a lot of good to it, because a lot of good came out of it. A lot of African Americans, they took it as something that they really looked up to, and they changed and reformed their lives. And many of them, the overwhelming majority of them, eventually became Orthodox Muslims. And Warith Din Muhammad, the son of Elijah Muhammad, eventually took over the nation after Malcolm was assassinated. And after Elijah Muhammad passed away, Elijah Muhammad wrote that his son, Warith Din Muhammad, takes over. Warith Din Muhammad did something I think all of us American Muslims should know, and that's he orchestrated the greatest mass conversion, because he basically said that the Nation of Islam is not true, and true Islam is true, Orthodox Sunni Islam is true. Malcolm X said that, and he was assassinated, but he went out and he claimed this, and the overwhelming majority of the followers of the Nation of Islam then accepted Orthodox Sunni Islam. Then there's another guy that came and he kept it going called Louis Farrakhan. He's actually still alive today. He's actually a very good speaker. He's one of the greatest speakers I've ever seen in my life, but of course he's Nation of Islam, he's not Sunni Muslim. Going back to Malcolm X received his greatness and his revival through jail, because when he was in jail he had time to be away from drugs and away from haram, basically away from chasing women, away from drugs, away from alcohol, time to reflect. You know, jail gives someone time to reflect and read and memorize. What did Malcolm X do? Malcolm X is what they call an autodidact. An autodidact is someone who is self-taught. He memorized the English dictionary in jail, and he talks about his journey with memorizing the dictionary in jail. So if you open the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it starts off with AA, aardvark. The first word, he talks about this in his autobiography, aardvark. The autobiography of Malcolm X as told by Alex Haley, because Alex Haley used to meet with Malcolm every couple of months, and he says, we're going to continue where we left off. So he writes the autobiography. Malcolm X told it orally to Alex Haley, and Alex Haley wrote it down. It turned out at the end that Alex Haley was an agent working for the FBI against Malcolm. So Malcolm X, he memorizes the dictionary by himself. Yeah, and that's how he became super, super educated in, what's it called when you have a high vocabulary? He became very, very eloquent. He became very, his speeches were amazing. Go look up a video of Malcolm X on the internet, by the way. When he gets interviewed by sometimes white interviewers, they try to get him, because they're trying to act smart, but he outsmarts everyone. He's amazing. He's phenomenal. He's a genius. Allah granted him the cat. He's very smart. He was the greatest caller to the Nation of Islam. Like Elijah Muhammad loved him. That's the whole reason the rift became so strong. Because when Malcolm X saw the truth of the real Islam, he denounced the Nation of Islam and he started his own thing in New York. And that's why they ultimately killed him. And he was murdered, he was murdered, and he's a martyr. Inshallah, may Allah have mercy on his soul. You know, may Allah forgive him of his shortcomings and increase his status in Jannah. An amazing individual that was brought to light from jail. He came out to jail like Super Saiyan, like super strong. And there's many people like him. Abu Hanifa was in jail. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal was beaten in jail so he could say something. And the ruler at the time was dying for him to say it. He's like, please just say this word. Say that the Quran is created, and it's not. Because the Quran is not created. Because the Quran is the speech of God. And the speech of God cannot be created. It's everlasting. It's a characteristic from the characteristics of God. This is a theological thing. Of course, this Quran in front of us, of course, if you're talking about the Mus'haf, this is of course created. The book is created. We're talking about the speech of God. The Quran is not created. It's everlasting and forever. It's a characteristic from the characteristics of God. So Imam Ahmad refused to give in to this, and they beat him, and ultimately he was freed, and now his legacy lives on for the one who kept the religion of Islam. They call him the one who protected the orthodoxy of Islam, because the ruler at the time had a deviant belief. So sometimes jail is good. Look, Nelson Mandela, he gets locked up for the ANC, the party of South Africa. The current ruling party of South Africa is the ANC. He got locked up for years, and he was known as a terrorist when they threw him into the jail. The South Africans, the apartheid state, they called Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Then he was eventually released from jail, and he became one of the greatest leaders, and he led the ANC for years. And then his son took over. And now, because we're talking about 2024, Gaza and Israel, there was an individual who was locked up in the jail system there for years, and he was released, and he recently passed away a martyr. May Allah have mercy on his soul as well. So we see that Yusuf alayhi salam, he's in jail now. He's in jail, and he has two people who are booked into jail at the same time as him. So the translator said, and there entered prison two young men with him. One of them said, indeed, I have seen myself pressing wine. He said, Inni arani a'siru khamra. He doesn't say explicitly, I saw in a dream. The word in a dream is not mentioned. So I was reading the tafsir. They said, how do we deduce that this was a dream? How do we understand? Because he said, I see myself pressing wine. Who says that? Because if you're not talking about a dream, you say, I press wine. I press wine. He's saying, I see. Indeed, I see that I press wine. Then at the end of the ayah also, they ask Yusuf for an interpretation, meaning that they're talking about a dream. Okay? So he says, indeed, I have seen myself in a dream pressing wine. And the other one said, indeed, I have seen myself carrying upon my head some bread. These two people, I was reading for the first time. I learned this. I never knew this. The guy, the Mufassir, Imam al-Razi, he said that they were thrown into jail with the same, what's it called in English? Charge. Before the charge, what is it? Accusation. That's the one. Tuhma. Accusation. Thank you so much. One of them, they both worked for the king, by the way. They were both servants of the king. One of them was the king's meal prepper, the one who preps the food and gives them the food. And the other one was the king's drink presser. Bartender. What's it called? Because the king had what's it called? Room service? The king had one guy for the meals and one guy for the drinks. So he told him, I want, what's it called? The seltzer with gin and juice. Of course, they used to drink back then. Like wine was a big thing. So wine, and they used to make their own wine, and they used to age wine. Ancient Egypt, you know. So before the Quran was sent down, before alcohol. So the food preparer or the cook was what's the word again? Accused. He was accused of poisoning or wanting to poison the king's food, and he was guilty of that. So the wine presser also was thrown into that accusation, and he was also accused along with him. They thought they were plotting together to kill the king. Of course, one of them was innocent. So now they're both booked with this accusation of attempted assassination of the king. They're both booked. Of course, one of them is innocent. We're going to see in the story that one of them gets out. So now they're تحت التحقيق. They're under investigation basically, but they're in jail waiting either to get crucified or waiting to get let out if they are proven innocent. So they're all in jail together, and Yusuf alayhi salam is in jail. And like we said, jail is a different setting and scenario. Jail is a different setting. Why is it a different setting? We see Yusuf alayhi salam at a young age. He's Yusuf at home. Yusuf at home with the family. Yusuf, the son of a noble prophet of God. Yusuf being raised in the family of a prophet. Then Yusuf, in the second part, is a slave in a kingdom, like a slave in a palace. He's a servant in a palace. And in both scenarios, in both settings, we don't see an appropriate opportunity to grow or speak. Because when he's young and he's with his father, he's listening to his father talk, and he's taking in and he's learning. Then when he's a servant, he's not in an appropriate setting to speak. He's busy with the chores of being a servant. But now, in this third chapter, or in this third scene, we see Yusuf alayhi salam in a different light, because he talks a lot. The next 2-3 ayahs is Yusuf talking a lot. What is he doing? He's giving da'wah. So the scholars say that he spoke a lot because this was his time and place to speak, and people were more receptive to listen. They say that if he tried to talk to the wife of the finance minister, she wouldn't have listened to him much. She was too busy trying to seduce him, and she was crazy about him. Like, you're trying to talk to her about, like, God is great and God is one, and she goes, no, like, she had no time for that, you know. But over here, he starts to give da'wah to the brothers in jail, which is really interesting. So they go and they tell him, I saw in a dream. The first one says, I see that I'm pressing wine. He said, Inni a'asiru khamra. In Arabic is I'm pressing wine. It's translated as pressing wine, but you don't press wine. You press grapes that become wine. So it's like he sees himself making wine, all right? And the other one says, I have seen myself carrying upon my head bread from which the birds are eating from. So they go to Yusuf alayhi salam, they say, Nabbitna bi ta'wilih. Please inform us of an interpretation of this dream, of these dreams. Inna naraka min al-muhsin. Indeed, we view you as, indeed our perception of you and our understanding of you is, you're a muhsin. We talked about ihsan before. They said, indeed we see that you are from the muhsinin. We see that you are from those who do good. Those who do good. What did they see in Yusuf alayhi salam that he did, is the question. What did they see in Yusuf that he did to make him look like he's a muhsin? They say many things. They say that first of all, they saw him tending to the sick and the needy in the jail, like he was helping out the guy that was sick. They see him being there emotionally for the people that want to open up to him, and he's giving emotional support. They see him doing things that a good person does. Indeed, we see from the good doers. A bad person, you talk to him about your problem, he goes, bro, what's wrong with you? You think I care about your problems? My girlfriend outside is bothering me, this, that. Like, a bad person, like, doesn't care about you or anybody. He cares about himself. Like, a good person is selfless. He cares about others. A good person wants to help people. He sees someone sick, he goes, yo, are you okay? Here's some of my soup. Here's a rat. We killed the rat yesterday here. Like, barbecue the rat for you. You know that? Jill, ain't she? He was being good to the people in jail. And also they say that possibly, or very much, most likely, he was praying and fasting a lot. Because prayer and fasting, salah and siyam, is something that was from all the nations before Islam. Of course, Islam has a specific way we pray that we learn from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have something called ritual prayer in Islam, right? Like Dhuhr and Asr, it's a ritual, right? There's a certain way we do it. Prayer, when we say as Muslims, I'm praying. When I tell Umar, I gotta pray, he understands from me that I'm doing this, Allahu Akbar. When a Christian tells you, I'll pray for you, it means I'm gonna make a dua for you. Prayer, salah, linguistically in Arabic, of course, it means dua. But Islam came and it codified it. It came and it made it a ritual, a specific ritual with an opening and an ending, with certain sayings and certain tasbih and certain movements. You got it? Salah has ruku', standing, sujood. Salah is a specific thing. So salah was something that all the previous nations had. But our codified salah of today is the last and final version. But the other Salifah, like Musa alayhi salam and Yusuf and Ayub, they all had salah. And they all had something as well, which is fasting. It's not something new, but of course the final version that we have is the version of Ummah Sayyidina Muhammad. Our Sharia is the specific fasting that we have of Ramadan, which is from morning to sunrise to sunset, to abstain from eating, drinking, and intercourse, right? So they also saw him probably close to Allah through worship. So they said, indeed, we see you from those who do good. Also, when you open up to someone about something intimate, such as a dream, you don't open up to anybody random. On the contrary, you open up to someone you feel like you could trust. You don't go out to the marketplace, or you don't go out to Main Street, to Mo Cafe, and you tell the person next to you drinking his coffee at Mo Cafe, don't go, the coffee's not, you don't go to the, you don't go to the person wherever you go, Dunkin' Donuts or Mo Cafe, you don't go to the person next to you and say, brother, I had a dream. Please tell me what it means. Who's he? What? But you open up to someone that you really trust. We learn this from the Quran itself, because in the beginning of the surah, Yusuf alayhi salam, he opened up to someone about his dream. To his father. He loved his father. His father was noble and pious. He felt like he could trust his dad. Why do these two prison people, why do his prison cellmates, why do they trust him to open up to him about something so intimate? Because he's such a good guy. That's what I'm trying to say. As a Muslim, you have to be a good guy or a good girl. You have to be good. You have to be a good person and want good. You have to be a person of ihsan. You have to be a person of ihsan. And that showed in him. So then he goes and he responds to them. He responds to them with something very interesting. He says, قال لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما ذلكما مما علمني ربي إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة كافرون. He says to them in response to their plea to interpret their dream, he said, you will not receive food that is provided to you except that I will inform you of its interpretation before it comes to you. He goes, that is from what my Lord has taught me. Indeed, I have left the religion of a people who do not believe in Allah, and they in the hereafter are disbelievers. He says something very interesting. They come and they ask him for an interpretation of a dream, and he responds and he says, yeah, when you get food, I'll tell you what food it is. Huh? They're asking him an interpretation of a dream, and he responds to them both saying, yes, when you get food, I will inform you what food you get before you get it. He changes the subject completely, and he does not tell them about their dream. He's getting there. You know what a cliffhanger is? Or you know when you want to keep someone, like, you have someone's attention finally, thank God. So you want to keep them like listening? He tells them in response to them asking him for an interpretation of the dream, when you get food, next time you get food, I'm going to tell you what kind of food it is before you get it. And then he's like, don't worry, I'll also interpret your dream later, like after that. He sees that they are in dire need of him. When someone needs you, they become receptive and they listen more. When someone needs you for something, if I need something from someone, I'll be at his service 24/7. I'll say, what do you need, brother? Just let me know. Please, like, if you could sign that paper for me tomorrow, I'd really appreciate it. And he asks me for anything, I'll go to Alaska for him. I'll come back from Alaska and get him whatever he needs. I'll get the petroleum from Alaska, I'll go get the petrol out myself. When you need something from someone, you are there and you're receptive. He, of course, pious, prophet, messenger of God, sahab da'wah, he knows that he has them. And he also knows something deeper than that. He knows that one of them is about to get killed. He knows one of them is about to get crucified. He's not going to tell that to them because it's kind of hurtful right now. He's trying to keep trying to keep it like calm. He's wise. So he's now going to do something phenomenal. In the next 3 ayahs, he's going to call them to Islam. He's going to give da'wah. He's going to give da'wah to them. And Yusuf alayhi salam, we didn't see him talking much at home, and we didn't see him talking much in the palace because it was not the right setting to talk. Now the playing field is his, and it's a good time to talk. So it's a good time for him to start and initiate da'wah. And they also say, some scholars also say that this was the first instance of him being a prophet because now he's finally talking. But we said the stronger opinion was last week that he became a prophet when he entered the palace, when Allah said we have granted him full strength and might, and we granted him wisdom and knowledge. You remember? That's when he became a prophet. So he tells them something. He says that I will inform you of your next meal before you get it. Isa alayhi salam, he was known to do miraculous things. He said, and I will inform you of what you have and you store at your houses. Isa alayhi salam in the Quran, he says to the people of Bani Israel, ما تأكلون وتدخرون في بيوتكم. Isa, he told his people as a miracle of his prophethood, because prophets are aided by God with mu'jizat. Prophets are aided by Allah with miracles. What is the point of a miracle? A miracle is to aid a prophet in his call, and a prophet is to aid a prophet in his da'wah, to give him strength, because only God could tell you. One of Isa's miracles, of course, was to heal the leopard and the blind as well, and to bring the dead to life, of course, bi'idhnillah. And the ayahs in Surah Al-Ma'idah and Surah Ali Imran, when Isa alayhi salam says that I bring the dead to life, and I cure the leopard, and I cure the blind, and I let you all know about what you eat and what you store in your houses. This is a miracle of Isa alayhi salam. He goes bi'idhnillah, of course, by the permission and will of God. It's called a miracle, brother. Musa alayhi salam, he had something called a staff, asa. He used to throw his staff, he used to become a python, right? A snake. That's a miracle. Musa alayhi salam, he hits his staff in the Red Sea splits open. That's a miracle. These are miracles are sent to prophets and messengers to aid them in their call. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was thrown into the burning fire in Babel, and he was not burnt by the fire. This is what we call a miracle. Miracles are sent to prophets and messengers to aid them in their da'wah, and to show their prophecy, to show the truth of their prophecy. So Yusuf tells them, I'm going to tell you about your food before you get it, meaning that I'll tell you the type of food it is, and the color of the food it is, and how much it is. And this aids him in his da'wah as well. And then he goes, ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. He goes, that is from the knowledge that my Lord has taught me. He's trying to, so now he attributes the knowledge of the unseen that he's going to know about the food to Allah. ذَلِكُمَا مِمَّا عَلَّمَنِي رَبِّي. That is from the knowledge that my Lord taught me. And then he goes, إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. He goes, indeed I have left off a religion of people who did not believe in God and they did not believe in the hereafter. Why did he say they did not believe in God and they also disbelieved in the hereafter? Because disbelieving in the hereafter is one of the biggest things that we believe in. It's one of the matters of the unseen. Who is he talking about? Of course he's not talking about Yaqub alayhi salam. I'd left off of people who don't believe in God and the hereafter. Who? The Aziz in Egypt, Egyptian society, right? Egyptian civilization, they believe in idols and they believe in Ra and sun god and crocodile god, right? Right? Crab cakes, right? So he goes, I'm going to let you know about your food, and this is just a sign of prophecy. Then he says, وَاتَّبَعْتُ مِلَّةَ آبَاءِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْحَاقَ وَيَعْقُوبَ ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون يا صاحبي السجن أأرباب متفرقون خير أم الله الواحد القهار ما تعبدون من دونه إلا أسماء سميتموها أنتم وآباؤكم ما أنزل الله بها من سلطان إن الحكم إلا لله أمر ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه ذلك الدين القيم ولكن أكثر الناس لا يعلمون. The next 3 ayahs is him giving da'wah, and they're all long ayahs. He says, and I followed the religion of my forefathers, Ibrahim and Ishaq and Yaqub. He goes now and he's telling them, these people in jail, because Ibrahim, Ishaq and Yaqub are known individuals. They're known to be prophets of God. He said, and I'm following the footsteps of my forefathers. Now that he has their undivided attention and they're glued to him, he's telling them, oh, by the way, I'm a Muslim. That's why you saw me praying and attending to the sick people. That's why you saw me doing these good things, because I'm a Muslim. That's what you do. That's how you give da'wah. You're good to someone. You're overly good with your actions and your character. Then they become susceptible. Then they become wanting to listen. Unlike the person who smells bad and talks bad and does bad. And then he goes, oh, I'm a Muslim, by the way. What? I don't want nothing to do with your I don't want your religion. I do not want your religion, brother. Muslim, they don't tell you to shower in your religion? Astaghfirullah. Come on, man. You could be a good representation of Islam. You have to stand out in society. There was a brother that converted to Islam that I met in Egypt. He was from Jersey City. He was an African American brother. He got to Egypt and I was showing him around. I was helping him buy stuff. Like, when someone first lands, we told him to buy a SIM card and then he has to buy, like we told him, like, go to this store, don't get ripped off. I teach him the ends, right? So this brother, he came to Egypt and every single person he saw on the street, he would get happy. He said, "Assalamu alaikum, brother." And they would all stare at him. What are you doing? Like, no one ever gave him wa alaikum salam. And it was so awkward for me, because how am I going to explain to this new Muslim? He just converted 3 days ago. How am I going to tell him stop giving salam? He doesn't understand. For him, Islam means salam, right? It's like you give salam. We're all Muslim, we all hug and stuff, right? He came to Egypt and wallahi, I was so embarrassed. Every time I go out with him, it's him jumping up and trying to shake people's hands and I'm staring at him and like walking away. Until I finally, I mustered the courage. I was like, bro, I love you. You give me salam. Me, no more salam outside. And he was so confused. He goes, why? It's the sunnah. I said, may Allah bless you in the sunnah. We love the sunnah. Wallahi, I love the sunnah too, bro. But not everyone understands this. Like, not everyone gets it. And I was so embarrassed to say this because I'm Arab too. And Egypt is an Arab country. And I was like, not everyone understands that, man. He goes, but aren't we in a Muslim country? Didn't we leave off America to come here? I was going to tell him, in America, I give salam to people that give me more wa alaikum salam in America than here. But I was like, and then he kept getting ripped off the first kind of weeks. And he told me something that I'll never forget. Like 2 weeks went by. He goes, thank God I converted him. He said, thank God I converted in America, because if I came here and if I wasn't Muslim, I'd never be a Muslim. But this statement, wallahi, I'll never forget it. I'm like, yo, he's so right. Us Muslims, we do not act like Muslims. You don't want to go see Muslims, go to Japan. They're all kafir, but they're all Muslim in Japan. Their etiquette is all Islamic. Japanese people, they clean and they're nice and they're hospitable. They're so nice. It's really bad. It's really bad. Wallahi, like we're laughing and stuff, but he was telling me after 2 weeks of Egypt, he was done. He wanted to go back to Jersey City. He was like, he said, he goes, thank God I became a Muslim in Jersey City. Thank God, because if I came here and I was not Muslim, I would never become a Muslim. Everyone's cheating and lying and no salam and and I was like, yeah, alhamdulillah, brother, alhamdulillah. No, so honestly, you have to hold Islam in your character and the way you act. Yusuf alayhi salam, he acted like a Muslim. He was clean. He stood out. All the other prison people are not clean. They're not standing out. He's clipping his fingernails and, attending to himself. I'm so serious, by the way. Being a Muslim I'm so serious. Being a Muslim is being approachable. And in order to be approachable, you have to be outwardly, physical appearance-wise, like well kept, like physical appearance-wise, clean. A Muslim is someone who is clean, who smells good, who's approachable, smells good, approachable, showers often. This is all sunnah. This is all sunnah. Like it's all sunnah to take care of yourself and to be approachable. It's all sunnah. The Muslim is pure on the outside and on the inside, and his outward purity is a reflection of his inner state. And we say this all the time. That's why there's a great Hanafi jurist. His name is Imam al-Shumbulali. He's from a place called Shabra Bulula and a place called Munufiyah in the Nile Delta of Egypt. It's north of Cairo. North of Cairo, we have something called the Nile Delta. Geography speaking, I love geography, so we have Egypt, and we have the Nile. The Nile goes down, and then it goes to Sudan, and it goes to Ethiopia, right? You got it, whatever, Lake Victoria, right? The Nile in Egypt goes from the bottom to the top. The Nile is one of the two rivers in the world that flow from south to north, not north to south. And that's because Africa is actually a plateau. You know, plateau means it's like elevated. Africa is elevated, so it goes down like that. Anyway, the Nile runs from south to north, not north to south. So once you hit Cairo, the Nile goes up north of Cairo, and then it splits out to tributaries, to multiple rivers, right? That area, north of Cairo, is referred to in Egypt as a delta. The Nile Delta. You have in it Kafr al-Shaykh, Mansoura, Buhaira, Iskandariya, Munufiyah, and all these provinces that many of our Egyptian brothers are from. It's all fertile, by the way. It's all farms. And then you have south of Cairo. So Egypt is cut up into two regions. Cairo, north of Cairo, south of Cairo. South of Cairo is Upper Egypt, they call it. But it's not upper, it's actually southern Egypt. But it's called Sa'id. It's called Upper Egypt. Why is that? Because everything is based upon the Nile. And the Nile runs backwards. So their understanding is that that's the north. You get me? Anyway, so the delta region of Egypt is very lush and plush. In it, you'll find this scholar. His name is Imam al-Shumbulali al-Hanafi. He wrote many books in the Hanafi madhab. And I studied a couple of his books. At the end of his chapter on Tahara, and his famous book called Nur al-Idah wa Najat al-Arwah, he has a famous book called The Light of Clarity. His book is titled The Light of Clarity and the Saving of Souls, wa Najat al-Arwah, and to save your soul. Because when you learn the 5 obligations of Islam, how to purify yourself, salah, prayer, hajj, zakah, and fasting, when you learn these 5 things, it's a light of clarity to your life, and it's a saving of your soul from the hellfire. So his book is written in these five acts of worship. It's a famous book, studied by all Hanafis all around the world. The Indian Hanafis studied this book in their curriculum, and the Syrian Shami Hanafis studied this book in their curriculum, and the Iraqi Baghdadi Hanafis studied this book in their curriculum, and the Egyptian Azhari Hanafis studied this book in their curriculum. At the end of his chapter on purity, wallahi, he says something phenomenal, and I grew to love him for this reason. He's not just a scholar of black and white. Scholar of black and white, fiqh is black and white. Fiqh is black and white. Fiqh is this many times you do this, it breaks your salah. You do this, your salah counts. Black and white. It's kind of a dry science. At the end of the chapter of purity, after he talks about wudu, and he talks about the types of water you're allowed to use for wudu, and the types of water you're allowed to use for ghusl, and how to make a ghusl. Why do I make wudu? From what breaks my wudu? What breaks my state of major purity? When do I have to make a ritual bath? After menstrual cycle or after release of semen? After talking about all of this important stuff on how to be a pure person, he goes, let us not forget, he ends his chapter, wallahi, amazing, because this book is to be taught everywhere throughout the world, all to kids growing up. This is the first book you study in the curriculum if you're Hanafi. He goes, and let us not forget about the more important purification, which is the purification of the inside, the batin. Because without the purification of the inside, from purifying your heart from ghil and namima and hasad and hiqt, without purifying your heart from bad things, like bad attributes, bad characteristics such as envy and lying and cheating and deception and stealing and backbiting and slander, without cleaning yourself from these things, what's the point of cleaning yourself from the outside? Because your outer state is a reflection of your inner state. I say this to all of you and myself, our outer appearance, the way we hold ourselves, cleanliness, being clean, clipped fingernails, trimming, whatever, this is a projection of our inner state. What's more important than all of that is your heart being cured from diseases. The Muslim is pure on the outside and on the inside. And the Muslim works on and constantly exerts effort in keeping himself outwardly, physically clean, and also inwardly, physically, spiritually clean. Let us not forget that. I see that everyone is tired, so we'll end here. I'm going to end here. Basically, he's in jail. He's asked about an interpretation of 2 dreams from 2 different people. He's a prophet of God. he wants their attention to continue, so he calls out to Islam basically. He gives them da'wah after being a person of good conduct, after already attracting their attention. They already, like if you are a person of good character, by the way, this is so powerful. I remember reading this about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The scholars, they said the reason why the companions, the Sahaba, were so susceptible to anything he told them, like to anything the Prophet came with, the reason why they listened to anything he said immediately was because they were in love with him already. Like he already won their hearts. How do you win someone's heart? Through good character and good conduct. The reason why the Sahaba all immediately did anything he said to them was yes, yes, no, yes. My life is for you, O Rasulullah. Because his conduct was so good. They saw nothing but good. Think of someone in your life who has really good character. I'm going to give an example. I'm going to say it in public. Wallahi, I've never seen someone like this man. May Allah preserve him. Shaykh Muhammad al-Qatanani. We all have faults, my brother. We're all human. We all have faults, you know. People can pick out faults from anyone. This man's character is impeccable. This guy is godly. He's an amazing human. May Allah bless him and increase him and protect him and preserve him and increase him and protect his family and protect his kids and grant him an abundant good and grant him grandchildren and grant him happiness. This man is a man of God, I promise you, because I've never seen a living example of someone so prophetic like him. His character is amazing. He's good to converts. He's good to Arabs. He's good to, no, that doesn't matter who you are. He's good to everyone. He's good to people that are difficult to be good to. Do you know what it means to be good to someone who it's difficult to be good to? Like, like you're human, you feel a type of way when someone comes at you strong. Like I entered the masjid, ICPC Patterson, every day there's different types of people that enter the masjid. One time I'm there, I'm in the bookstore, I hear someone enter, who's in charge here? Who's in charge here? I've been waiting 3 weeks for my check. Like all types of people, all types of people. His response to every type of person, every category is happiness and smiles. I've never seen anything like it. This like extreme wisdom, extreme exertion of patience, extreme beauty. Like he's so gentle. That was the Prophet, by the way. The Prophet had to interact with people, by the way, who killed his family members, by the way. Like, you know, like how many people were on the other side, and then they eventually converted, and the Prophet had to deal with them like daily and see them like daily. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, his character and his conduct was what made everyone love Islam and everything about Islam. And that's why the Sahaba were so susceptible and they said yes to anything, because he won them over already. He didn't come and tell them to leave off alcohol and wear hijab and wear jilbab after the first day. This is after years of cultivating love in their heart for him and for the religion. Yusuf alayhi salam, same thing. They love him already. They love him already, so now he has them, right? So then he goes and he gives da'wah. I'm going to just say it without reading it, and then next week we'll start. He goes and he calls them to Islam. He basically calls them to Islam. And he says, I'm following the footsteps of my forefathers. And he mentions, to grant himself more credibility, he goes, my father Ibrahim and Ishaq and Yaqub, ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله شيء. It's not befitting for us. It was not befitting for us to commit shirk with Allah. And then he calls them out. He refers to them as Ya Sahibay Sijn. He calls out to these two people as my two dear prison friends. Ya Sahibay Sijn. Sahib is a friend. He refers to them not as, oh, you stupid, rebellious, horrible people, like, oh, you two prison people. He goes, Ya Sahibay, my two beloved friends, my jail friends. Yeah, so he calls them something nice. He doesn't tell them their dream. He just gives them da'wah. He goes, it doesn't make sense. He goes to them, does it make like logical sense to worship multiple gods that you named yourself? Or does it make sense to worship the one true God? And then he's going to go and tell them the interpretation of the dream, as for you and as for you. So we can continue that next week, inshallah. But inshallah, we ask Allah to bless us with beneficial knowledge and understanding and guidance and wisdom, and to make us people of the Quran. Inshallah, if you're able to attend next week, please make sure you come. And if not, you could watch online, but next week is going to be good. I'm really sorry it took longer than I thought. The next part is really good. It's really good. I'm itching to say it, but inshallah we could leave on a cliffhanger, you know, and the scene goes out black. He's giving da'wah now. Yusuf alayhi salam, he's in jail and he's giving da'wah. Any questions from today? Yeah. 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 This is a very good question. So he said that the women of the city, they invoked God. When they saw Yusuf alayhi salam, they said, Hasha lillahi ma hada bashara in hada illa malakun kareem. They say, oh, perfection is only to God. This cannot be a human being. Indeed, this is a noble angel. So he asked, how are they invoking God when we know that they worship multiple gods? It's the same answer for what we said about the wife of the Aziz. The wife of the Aziz was told by her husband to make istighfar to God. He said, Istaghfiri li dhanbiki, innaki kunti min al-khati'in. He said, go seek istighfar, ask forgiveness from God, because indeed you made a great sin. Meaning that they didn't worship the king of the time, and they worshipped gods. So they were polytheistic, but of course polytheistic religions believe in a stronger, higher God, so in higher being. So what they mean here is like not to ask for forgiveness from the idols, but to ask forgiveness from the higher one. So the same thing with them. They all believe in a polytheistic, and they differ, by the way. The scholars differ on what the people of Yusuf were worshipping, but we know that they were polytheists. Was it the sun or the moon? But by the way, ancient Egyptian civilization, even their gods are all to do with like the sun and the moon and stuff, like the god of Ra and stuff. They're all symbols of, they were polytheistic. Polytheistic religions, worshipping other than God, we have an expert on it here because he taught me a lot. Sulaiman taught me a lot. It's all satanic, by the way. It all goes back to worshipping the devil. And when they do like rituals such as like sacrificing animals or beasts for their gods, it's all satanic. It's to summon jinn. So many things we see in ancient Egypt is like, when you hear about the rituals and stuff, it's all like satanic stuff. So of course that's because they worship more than one God. Yes, they believe in a higher being, of course, but they worship multiple gods. Good job. Yeah. Correct. Very good, very good, very good. So this is an excellent question. And from this question, we can open the door for interpretation here. Very good question. He said, we talked about the fa being immediately and the wow being open. So wow could mean immediately, and it also could mean after a bit of time. Or it could mean simultaneously. So wow is open. So what we understand from the wow was from context. So he said that when Allah answered Yusuf, Allah used the fa, which means Allah immediately answered his dua. He immediately answered in his call. But when they entered the prison, it says, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتِيَانِ. Wow could mean that they entered simultaneously, at the same time. And that's what it means here, is that wow, and they entered at the same exact timing, together. Yeah. Inshallah, we'll stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسمك وتعالى جدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. If anyone wants to purchase the book or want the book for free, we have books.